Hey, Kristen.
Hey Janine, how's it going?
It's going all right. It's going all right. Like I was just thinking, like I was making all this content about what to wear to work and like how to like not have to conform or wear blazers and things like that. And I get like so many people saying that they can't be themselves at work. And so, like and I was just wondering, like, have you ever had that experience where you felt like you couldn't be yourself?
I definitely have. Yeah. It was like a lifetime ago, but when I worked as a science editor, I was very conscious of the male gaze and of the fact that I was working around a lot of men. And I felt like it was a weird tension because I felt like I had to dress for the male gaze, but also dress in a way that wasn't too overtly feminine or like sexual in any way. So it was like it felt like a thing to navigate, and it was kind of hard to navigate. I didn't want anyone commenting on my body or, like just I was aware of all these things. But then in retrospect, all that energy I was using to worry about that could have been better spent on my actual work, I'm thinking.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times I think about what would happen if we didn't have to worry about what we wore, that we could just wear whatever we liked and just whatever gave us energy. And like
Yeah.
what could happen to your life, to your career, and all of that. And so, which makes me think about Leah Elson,
Yeah.
who is a
Amazing.
amazing. She is a scientist and she does not look like an ordinary scientist.
Yeah, she doesn't present the way you would imagine a scientist. Like, I think even in this day and age, a lot of people expect a scientist to be like an older white man with a lab coat on. But she, has pink hair, wears amazing eyeliner, and has tattoos, always looks really cool in her videos. And
And is a neuroscientist,
and is a neuroscientist, has an undergraduate degree from Harvard and two graduate degrees, and is now a working scientist. And, I think it's all working for her because she has like more than 300,000 followers on Instagram.
which is amazing, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd really love to know like how she got to that point.
Yeah. Really want to hear her story. I think we
Yeah.
should have her on.
Yeah. Let's go talk to her.
Let's do it.
Hi, welcome to the Closet Philosophy Podcast. This is Janine. I'm a personal stylist.
And this is Kristen. I'm a fashion writer, and we're here to uncover the ways that your personal style is so much more than just clothes.
Whether you realize it or not, what you wear touches on science, psychology, culture, politics, and so much more.
Leah Elson is a scientist and beloved social media personality who makes complicated science concepts accessible and easy to understand for her more than 400,000 followers. She is the author of There Are No Stupid Questions in Science and has a degree in pre med from Harvard University, a graduate degree in biotechnology at Johns Hopkins University, a second graduate degree in biostatistics and epidemiology from the Keck School of Medicine at the University of Southern California. That is a mouthful and very impressive. Leah Leah has published more than 87 scientific manuscripts and supplements. She's been cited more than 1,000 times by other published investigators around the world. Her manuscripts on ResearchGate generate 2 to 3,000 reads per week. Beyond her hardcore science cred, Leah has killer personal style that sometimes confuses trolls on her page who can't understand that women can be more than one thing at a time. Welcome, Leah, to Closet Philosophy. We're so excited you're here.
That was an incredibly glowing intro.
Well, it's
I
all
Hear it though.
so, isn't
I
it?
hope to live up to the parade that was that intro.
It was super
Yeah, I
accurate,
love
indeed.
it. I love it. It's so cool. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to talk to you.
Thank
Um,
you for having me.
I'd love to start by hearing about what you're currently working on and how you got into talking about science on social media of all places.
Sure, sure. So I sort of have I have my 9 to 5 scientist gig, and then I have my what I call 5 to 9, which is the off hours science communicator gig. So in my professional capacity, I am a clinical development scientist in the field of peripheral nerve repair and regeneration. And so I work with a group of very talented scientists on helping surgeons help patients restore function and sensation when they've lost it due to a trauma, due to oncologic resection, things like that. And then on the side, my academic research includes neuroimmunology. So I'm currently investigating the linkage between imbalances in gut bacteria in your gut flora and how that contributes to the breakdown of nerve tissue downstream. And this is cool because it has applications in human medicine. So patients undergoing chemotherapy, radiotherapy that have their gut biome destroyed, they can potentially benefit from some of the mechanisms that I'm investigating. And also astronauts in space have their gut flora pretty well destroyed. So we can span both outer space and Earth here in this very niche academic research that I'm conducting. But then on the side, I am a science communicator, and this is something wherein I sort of stumbled into it. I never woke up one day and said, I'd really like to do science communication for the public. But it was something that I always had the gift of gab, and I used to just amuse my friends with live videos that became more and more explosive chemically and became quite dangerous. I torched a shower curtain to ashes once, demonstrating the principles of a dual phase rocket engine for the amusement of my friends on Facebook Live. And I had been getting encouraged by all of them. They were like, you got to do this for the public. So I started a page not thinking that it would become anything, and it has exploded in recent years. And so I see the need. There's a need for people to understand and love science again. And so I'm just trying to fill my civic duty in that capacity.
That's amazing. I mean, you're doing an excellent job. I'm so obsessed with your page. I used
Thank
to
you.
write about science back in a previous life, so I still have an affection for like science content, and you just do such a good job of explaining stuff in ways that people can understand that normal people can, I mean, non-scientists can, not that scientists
Well,
are not normal.
thank you. No, I was going to say we are the most abnormal of all. So
So you wrote a book called There Are No Stupid Questions in Science, and it aims to make science accessible. And so I'm just curious what inspired you to write it, and how do you approach, what's your approach to making complex concepts understandable?
So the book, I think people ask this question and they want this very glamorous, like, oh, it was a dark and stormy night and this scientist was brooding over something. No, it was, I take my content suggestions for the science communication from the public themselves. So it's not really a top-down lecture. I cultivate it and I get the audience asking questions and then I sort of answer them ad hoc. And I have this repository of content. I mean, you guys are podcasters, you kind of have in the pipeline what you want to talk about. It just makes it easier to kind of have things lined up to do and to record. And I had this laundry list of topicality. And I was like, these answers are going to necessitate a really elegant response. And I can't do that in 90 seconds that I'm allotted on Instagram. And so I was like, man, somebody should write this book. And then in the same thought, I was like, dude, I should write this book. So that same day, I literally got back. I was working in oncology at the time, got out of the research center and literally Googled, how do you publish a book?
Oh
And
my
then
God.
went through that entire existential crisis of, do I want to go the traditional publishing route? Do I want to self-publish? And yeah, I got an agent, went traditional publishing, got picked up pretty quickly, and it was an absolute blast to write. So
That's awesome. So it sounds like you were able to take some of the stuff that you've been talking about on social media, but you were able to expand on it in a way that felt like a little bit more sort of like satisfying in terms of getting that information out to the public.
absolutely. The thing about the questions in the book is that the questions are quite simple. And in fact, they're all from adults from around the world, but they're all very childlike in nature. And so I also illustrated the book, and it was originally illustrated in crayon. They had to digitize the crayon, unfortunately, so you don't get that magic, that Crayola magic. Not sponsored, by the way. But it the simplest questions always evoke the most elegant responses. Like somebody will ask me, for instance, something simple: how do vaccines work? And I'm like, well, I could give you an 18-hour lecture on immunology and the development of vaccines and staging of vaccines, but I can't do that in 90 seconds. And so some of these questions I had saved simply because I'm like, I don't know that I can do that real justice. And it
Mm-hmm.
lent really well. I mean, I think it's a 103 questions, and I even shaved it down because I was like, man, do I want to do 103 illustrations? Probably not. And so we shaved it down, but yeah, they were questions that just they deserved to have something a bit lengthier and something that I could sit down and write in a literary way with sarcasm and weirdness to really do it justice.
And what question like surprised you the most?
Well, the question, I mean, they're all, to me, science is all surprising. It's all amazing. It's all magic. I have a patch on my backpack that I take when I travel that says science is like magic, but real. And it's totally apropos, but one of the questions that is the most fascinating and strange and bizarre that somebody asked, again, sounds like a very simple question, is why can't anything go faster than the speed of light? And this is steeped in like deep quantum physics, steeped in the unknown, steeped in theoretical physics. And so it is me taking a page to a page and a half. Like, how do you describe something that is so esoteric and strange? And a lot of it has to do with like, well, the speed of light is just kind of the universal speed limit. We don't know why it's that particular speed. It just is. And, so having to describe things like time dilation and quantum application was fascinating and weird. And I actually sweated over that because in my capacity as a trained scientist, I'm in medical sciences, human medicine. And so I was like, God, I really feel like I need like a quantum physicist adult to read this. And I read that passage 18 times to make sure I did it justice. So luckily it worked out.
I mean, it's such a gift to be able to break these types of things down into things that people can understand. I mean, like once I heard someone explain like gravity is actually time. And so and that's something that blew my mind. It's like, the things that are closer to the bigger mass like run slower in time. So it kind of goes like this, like towards like the bigger
Whoa.
mass. I mean, I'm making a like a hand motion going pointing downwards, and because the molecules on top are going at a faster time because they're running at a faster time, and then they go faster, and then it just kind of whoop, it makes everything go, and I was like, what time?
And what's strange, I think, is that we have such a concept of human beings of time as being a watch mechanism. It's like a linear thing. But I think what blows people's minds, because I get the question a lot from followers, like, what's the weirdest piece of science information that you know? Like, what's the strangest thing? One of them is that time is a dimension. It's, we think of dimensionality like forward, back, side to side, top, bottom. We perceive things three-dimensionally, but time is a fourth dimension because if I told you, hey, meet me in front of the Starbucks in downtown LA, whichever one of the 8,000 that exist down there, you would need to know the spatial dimensions. So you would need to know which Starbucks, which corner. Am I meeting you inside? Am I meeting you outside? So, we're establishing that. But then the other piece of dimensional information you need to know is what time am I meeting you there? Because if I don't give you that coordinate, we're going to miss each other. And it's something that escapes human perception, but it truly is its own dimension.
Yeah,
Wow.
it makes a lot of sense. I mean, like as soon as you said it is a dimension, I immediately said like that makes sense. Like, of course, because if we're not on the same, how would we have this podcast? Like, unless
Exactly.
let's all meet at this time. Let's go.
Exactly.
So, yeah, awesome. That's
So
so cool.
cool. That's so cool. And just it is really a gift to be able to explain things clearly like that, because when I was a science writer, I would interview scientists a lot. And a lot of the time, I had no idea what they were talking about. I had to be like, can you please talk to me like I'm in third grade because I do not understand. I don't have any science degrees. Like, so
Mhm.
it's a rare gift to be able to do that.
Well, and it's problematic between specialties. I mean, I talk to other scientists and I'm like, I'm not specifically trained in your field and I have no idea what you're talking about. Like
Right.
I made it the first few paragraphs and then after that, and it's interesting because we are in this paradigm shift in modern science and technology wherein scientists became hyper specialized. Scientists began as generalists, right? You had your polymaths like Leonardo da Vinci that was proficient in like understanding engineering, math, art, all these things. And then as as we marched forward, technology and the way in which we conducted scientists allowed for us to kind of branch off and hyper specialized. And I am a product of that. I am hyper specialized, not just science, not just human medicine, not just upstream human medicine and surgery, but like nerve repair and regeneration of the peripheral nervous system. I mean, I am really funneled in there. But the problem is that now we're all so hyper specialized as scientists, we're losing the forest for the trees. And so now it's like we have to boomerang back, and we do have to cultivate polymaths, and we do have to cultivate cross specialty collaboration. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to answer some of life's big problems. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
really existential kind of problems without us all coming together. So it's kind of like this strange, you get so hyper specialized that you lose other scientists in the weeds of what you're talking about. But we need that kind of like return back to the Da Vinci era where you've got people that can speak across all specialties.
Yeah, I mean, I get that a lot because like I think one of the things that people find interesting about my account is that I talk about fast style as something that is like holistic. It's not just clothes. It's also, for example, like you feeling like you can't wear something. Like, and then when you wear something, you're scared to wear it. Like that is actually like your nervous system, like reacting to a psychological idea that you cannot stand out because you would be in danger. And that and where does that come from? And like this whole thing is like, even like something like our style choices can be rooted in, like science, anthropology, sociology, art, design, patriarchy, like all of the things just into one outfit decision. And I think that like I don't see a lot of people who have that kind of generalist knowledge that can really kind of connect the dots like that.
I've never felt so much pressure to dress in my life now. Why say that?
I mean,
I'm
I'm
like, oh my
a
gosh.
t-shirt and a random cardigan. So,
Well, Janine,
um,
I'm glad you brought the conversation to style, because that's kind of what we're here to talk about, in addition to everything else.
yeah.
But Leah, I wanted to ask you about your style, and when did you first get interested in sort of like beauty and style? And like your makeup always looks so amazing, and um, like and how has that sort of run parallel with your science career? Like, has it ever been? Well, I see on your page that some men are just kind of such idiots with the comments and stuff. So I'm just curious on in the broader sense, like, has it been sort of difficult to navigate, like having sort of a feminine style and also being a really established scientist?
A lot of it initially, I think, was self-imposed. What you find as a woman in the sciences, especially if you're in a very deeply male-dominated area of science, is that there is this pressure to conform to that. So this feeling that you have to masculinize, this feeling that you have to downplay your sexuality, this feeling that you have to downplay your femininity, it is pervasive. And it's something that more and more female scientists are sort of talking about in general. And I certainly felt that at the beginning of my career. I was sort of a poor kid from Southern California, and then I ended up getting accepted to Harvard. And for me, I was like, this is a culture shock, and it is a very, it's a very like, do I belong in these halls, these hallowed halls of Harvard, right? And so when I got my first big girl scientist job out there in Boston proper, I was like, okay, like how do I play the role of a scientist so nobody knows that I'm not supposed to be here, And eventually, as I started stacking up my CV and I started becoming more and more respected in my field and came into my own, I realized that individuality and creativity is such a paramount important thing as a scientist, because science is inherently a creative process. You are a critical thinker. You need to think outside the box, especially in something that I'm doing, which is very innovative, sort of bleeding edge science. You have to feel empowered and comfortable with who you are. Otherwise, you are shunting so much energy into the performative aspect of being somebody you think everyone thinks that you should be. And all of that cognitive power is being put into something that doesn't matter, and it should be put into your work. And so, I started dressing the way I wanted to dress. I don't wear like front pleated Dockers and like a tucked in shirt. I wear a lot of black on black. I wear a lot of sleekness. I have visible tattoos. I've got a full sleeve. My hair is like slightly pink now. That's a recent development in my life. And these are things that if you had told me as a young scientist, hey, this is the aesthetic that you should have, I would have been like, absolutely not. I would never get hired. But the funny thing, and maybe this is something that is happening socially today, is that the people, the like white-haired established older scientist generation that I would have thought would have judged me, my predecessors, they're the first ones to come up and be like, you're so cool looking. I'm like, thanks. And so they've started embracing it, or they'll be like, I really love your tattoos. Those are so cool. I wish that I had gotten tattoos. And so it's been something that has been unexpectedly accepted by my ilk and my kin and my predecessors, even my boss. And the funny story about my full sleeve is that I was an adult when I got it in my recent career. And I got it because I had a bunch of tattoos, but they were all covered. And this surgeon, she came up to me and my boss, and I had a smaller tattoo kind of on my forearm. And she was like, I really love the fact that you showcase your tattoos as a woman in science. I think that's really dope. And I was like, thanks so much. And my boss, he was like, yeah, I think you should be able to express yourself if you want to. And in my mind, I was like, say less. And I booked an entire sleeve. And I came back into the following staff meeting and I saw him double take. And I know in his head, he was like, girl, that's not what I meant. That I didn't mean go that hard in the paint, but it has been embraced, accepted, and I feel like it has helped me be a boon in what I do. Like I said, if I'm not shuttling energy into trying to be somebody I'm not, I can focus on all of these things that I do and be productive in them and confident in them, which is very important.
Yeah. I mean, by showing up for yourself and being in your authentic style, you're actually boosting that energy. Whereas if you are dressing in like the pleated Dockers, you're actually kind of apologizing for your existence. And therefore, like all of the work that comes out of that is going to be also apologizing for your existence. It's kind of like embodying your, your true self, like in kind of showing up that way. And then everything else kind of ripples out from there. And then when you show up
Absolutely.
as your authentic self, you also give people permission around you to show up as their authentic selves.
Absolutely. And it was never a directive of mine where I said, I'm going to make this choice to make a catalytic social statement. However, that has become the case now because now, I've been able to hold the platform that intellectualism is not an aesthetic. It's not a costume, right? It is a state of mind. It is a curiosity. It is a cognitive thing. You can look any kind of way, and that has broader reaching implications because what I have stood behind is having more underrepresented groups in the sciences, right? When I was young, if you had told me to draw a scientist, I would have drawn an old white guy in a coat, right?
Mhm.
And that is a really difficult thing because if you cannot see it, you can't be it. And in science, we need all different sorts of minds from all different walks of life, all different creeds, all different nationalities, all different races, because during your formative years, you learn to think a different way. And we need all these brilliant minds to come to the table together to solve big problems. And so in that capacity, I like to be a relatable scientist. I like to look a way that people wouldn't expect. I like to shirk the idea that scientists have an aesthetic. They don't, they're just people, and they are and should be very broad reaching, very diverse people, so it was never my intent to be like, I'm going to have this big social platform, but it has evolved to be that. And I've really enjoyed embracing that aspect of it.
I love hearing that because, like, saying that it actually takes less energy to dress authentically to yourself, and then you can use that energy for your work. Because
Mhm.
there's this very old-fashioned idea that like wearing makeup or carrying what you're wearing is like going to be a distraction from your work. Like all of that is like there was a comment on one of your posts that was like couldn't listen because of all of the fluff, like the fluffy look or something like that. It's like what's wrong with your hearing that like what you're looking
Yeah.
like why?
Yeah, that sounds like a you problem.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's so nice to hear that it's actually the opposite,
It
you
is. It
know?
is. And you get these, and by and large, my following and or random people that stumble into me are 99% of the time just so wonderful and supportive. But it is these little dragging the troglodytes, the cognitive social troglodytes that just don't embrace pushing things forward, and they don't like things that are outside the status quo. And in response to that, I say, fuck the status quo, because who created it? It is completely arbitrary.
Mhm.
And I would hope that my value would be judged based on what I'm providing to humanity, because that's what's important to me. And so that is by extension what should be important to you.
Mm,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love that. Does it ever get to you like like some of those negative comments, or do you kind of just let them roll off?
Um, you know, I'm very resilient, which I think you have to be, being in a growing publicly facing platform. I think what gets to me most is just the larger idea that women in the sciences is still not acceptable or respected by some people. And to me, that bespeaks a larger issue societally. And I don't like that part. For me, I now turn it into just funny videos where I like to troll the trolls in essence, and people get a kick out of that. And, you know, I, I don't allow it to take up much real estate in my mind. One, because I'm far too busy for that, but also two, the payback that I get are parents reaching out to me in my DMs and saying, I show my 12-year-old daughter your videos and she loves science because of you. And so to me, you could troll me 100 times, but if I get one message like that, then it was worth it. So
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I am one of those. I have a literally have a 12-year-old daughter, and I show her your account. I'm like, this is a scientist. She is a
I love that's
scientist.
such an I always say it's an honor that I hope that I can live up to.
Yeah.
I mean, can you elaborate a little bit more on like why that was so that like because you posted an emotional video about it, and could you elaborate a little bit more on like why that was so meaningful to you?
Sure. So, I grew up in a tumultuous environment, and it was like that for grand majority of my life. And I left that environment when I was 18 years old. It was a hard decision, but the best decision I could make. And I never had good role models. I never had somebody to look up to. I never had a hero. I never had like healthy interpersonal relationships to really latch onto. And so I always said, you know, my reaction formation psychologically to that, I had two options. I could become a statistic and I could be that kind of archetypal person and be very destructive, or I could choose a better path that was helpful and honest and genuine and empathetic. And, you never, when you're in this position, it's very, very myopic. In my perspective, I do my job during the day. I get online, I make a video, I post it. People are like, "Oh, yay, this is funny. I love it." Or like, "Thanks for the content." I'm like, "Sure, great." But you don't necessarily know the impact you're having. And then to get flooded with comments, and especially the interesting dichotomy of it is that I got flooded with supportive comments because of an Inked magazine interview that I did. And so there was a photo of me where you can see a lot of the ink on my flank. And when I posted it, I was like, oh, there was this moment of like, I really hope that there's not it's just sort of like a public decrying of this content, because I'm not trying to be overtly sexual. Like it's about the ink, so it's not like, it's not like overly sexualized or anything like that. And I
Mhm.
was worried about what that perception would be, knowing that I have young women looking at my content. And the avalanche of support I received from women, from people being like, "I'm a single dad of daughters. Like, this is awesome. You are such a role model." I mean, I broke. I was going, I mean, I could scroll through all of these message requests that I had, and I went through every single one. And I had always wanted to be the adult I never had. And to hear people over and over again say it, "You're a role model. You're a hero to my kids. When my kids are old enough, I'm going to show them your content. Thank you for being here. Like, you're such a light."
Mhm.
I mean, it was just an overwhelming sense of, I did it. I have broken that cycle of abuse and of negligence and of lack of empathy. And I have now become somebody who, at least at face value, has been worthy of being a role model. And that's, if I can inspire somebody, then my job is done. And so and I was like, "Don't cry." Like, I'm not gonna cry. It's a social media post. Fine. I'm not gonna cry. And then I just, when I
Sorry.
was like, you know what? let it roll because it's real and it's honest. And that's, that is what my page is just about honesty and trying to be genuine. And I've been getting recognized somewhat recently in public now quite often, and people always say the same thing, like, oh, you're exactly the same in real life. And I'm like, I am. There's no facade here. I'm geeky just like this in real life.
That's really awesome.
I
That's really
love that.
awesome.
I mean, it's so meaningful because it's like you never know, like when you're posting a video, like what impact that's going to have, or like you don't know if your intentions are going to translate in the same way as, how people react to them, and then that they saw like your true intention and was just like really supportive of it. That's like really amazing and such like a really great source of feedback that your content really matters to people.
And it helps keep me going because a lot of people always ask. I mean, I interviewed a candidate for a job position today, and one of the first things she said was like, I looked you up and like, oh my God, how do you do all of this stuff? Like I'm a full-time scientist, I have all these other things. And it's stuff that feedback keeps me going. I don't do it because I want the feedback. Like, I mean, everybody's a glutton for compliments and to know that they're doing something good, but I do it so that it benefits everybody else. I think science is the grand equalizer and it really brings people together. And so when I hear that feedback, like it makes me motivated to be like, okay, you're tired. You just went to the gym, but you know what? Get ready and make a video because there are people out there ravenous for what you do and it matters to them. So
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned in another video that you worked super hard throughout your education. And it was in that video where you were referencing the woman who questioned that you misrepresented your credentials, who essentially libeled
yeah.
you by saying
I
that.
was like, did I though?
I know, like,
Did
seriously. And it seems like you're sort of good at doing many things at once because you said you worked full time all through college and your two graduate degrees, and now you're basically doing like three jobs. So, so like, is it kind of a skill that you've developed, do you think, to be able to do a lot?
I think it's a trauma reaction.
Mm,
Honestly, I when I was in school, being very accomplished served two things. One, it was escapism. The more I was at school, the less I was in the home environment. And so as a result, I was in high school, I was an AP student taking college courses. I was a varsity athlete. I was in choir. I was in student government. And so I always had all of these things. And so during my formative years, I learned very quickly to develop this really, really good multitasking capacity as escapism. But also, too, which is a gift and a curse, is that when you grow up in an environment where you're not shown unconditional love, you seek love conditionally. And so me bringing home the A's, me being on honor roll, me being a varsity athlete, at times would get me that unconditional. It was conditional, but it was the love that I wanted, the praise, the you did such a good job. And so now it's sort of, I do all these things. I write books and I do science communication and I'm, like trying to do space medicine in my capacity. And it is cool, but it's also a trauma issue. I'm like, I need to learn to love myself as I am. The hardest talk that I ever had, I went to a therapist. I was like, probably got some cobwebs I got to brush out. And she looked at me dead in my eyes and I was like, ma'am, the audacity. And she said, if I took away all of your degrees and your credentials and your accomplishments, would you still love yourself? And I was like, oh, how dare you? But it was
wow.
such
Wow.
a real sobering moment because that was the first moment, and this was recently, this was like 3 years ago. This was
Wow.
the first moment where I realized, oh, the constant drive to excel, even though I really enjoy it, is not necessarily because Leah just likes to do stuff. Like it is a trauma response and it is a seeking love conditionally. So yeah, so that's it's yielded obviously wonderful results. And I could have gone the opposite way. Like I could have just did drugs, I guess. But instead my addiction is doing better and bigger
Degrees.
and yeah, exactly. Like I have an addiction to academia,
But
which is way more expensive than drugs. Like drugs would be way cheaper than
Right.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I almost want to push back. I mean, I'm not a psychologist or a therapist or any, I'm a stylist, but But I recognize creativity when I see it. And like creativity is like has a drive in it when like it just goes there's no reason. It's like it just happens. And and as you said, like science is very creative. And so maybe you wouldn't have achieved everything in the same way, but that drive and that curiosity would have been there regardless, I think, and would be like, even if you were to take away all your degrees, like tomorrow, like you would probably still create in a completely different way.
It's possible.
Yeah.
I never thought of myself as like a creative, I think, until I started doing science communication. And a lot of that is probably just because when you're working full time and you're a full-time student, you don't have a lot of time to be creative on the side. But I think I've always liked putting things out into the world in some capacity, and some I love teaching, I love inspiring people, and it may not be in doing sculpture or working with clay, but the world of science is my clay. It is my canvas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that you are as the like a public facing scientist that you are making it sort of clear that scientists are creative because I think a lot of people think that scientists are like not creative, like they're like kind of boring and all about numbers and not really creative like you are, but the scientists who I've met are actually like really creative. Like a lot of them like seem to play piano and like play instruments. Like it seems like a lot of scientists have other interests that you would more closely associate with creativity, but there's like a similarity there. It's like if you're playing guitar, it's like there's some similarity between like a scientific mind and a playing music mind, it seems.
Oh, sure. Well, it's very mathematically based. You look at
Right.
music score, all of it is very proportional and mathematic and fraction based. And yeah, it's interesting. I always like seeing what friends of mine, deeply nerdy friends, do on the side, or they're in their basement painting Warhammer figurines, and
Yeah.
it's still creative. It's still creative. I love it, and I think that's important. It's important to talk about because currently science has a bit of a PR problem. And so making scientists relatable is very important right now in the era of science and technology. Because the last thing that we in this country, but also just as a global community, is we don't want to get left behind in the era of science and technology. We are on the precipice of some really hugely existential things with the advent of AI and, more importantly, AGI, things of that nature, wherein if our general public is science weary or scientist averse, or they're not completely lockstep with what we're doing right now, I mean, it's going to be an absolute disaster when something like that happens, where you're like, oh, now we've answered the largest human question, is, are we alone in the universe? And now we're not. We have another consciousness here on Earth, and it supersedes us by an innumerable amount of factors. And if people are already averse to the science and the scientists, et cetera, then it's just going to be this like horrific psychological, everyone is left behind. Like, what do you do in that scenario? So a
Mhm.
lot of bringing and encouraging my colleagues to come to the forefront, be relatable, be yourself, be creative, be goofy, be visible. It helps bring people back together. During the 60s, we had the space race, and the entire nation rallied around its scientists and engineers to get us up into space and to the moon ultimately. And we've lost sight of that. And unfortunately, in the era of science and tech, scientists are the ones that should be helping to lead a lot of these philosophic discussions among the public. So
Well, I mean, I think like some of it is that we've put so much value in like STEM that the arts have suffered because of
mhm.
it, and
Mhm.
especially in public schools. And so, and people aren't taking liberal arts degrees because, you can't get paid. Not like you get paid as a scientist, but I think that they actually go like hand in hand with each other because, like as you said, I went to art school and it was very much about like thinking, like curiosity, like what happens when you do this? Like what happens, like what if you put this and this together? Like what happens, and like it is almost like the same kind of thought process, but
It's like alchemy. It's like
it's like
chemistry, right?
it's like
Yeah.
chemistry, yeah. And so it's like in personal style is like the same exact way. It's like, people say like, oh, well, how do you have such good style? Or how do you think of all of these different things? And for me, it's like it's a framework. It's like a structure of thinking. It's like I just put things together. Like I actually have a model of how I put things together, but like I just put things together and see what happens. And, and there's like visual reasons why certain things look good together and some don't. But like ultimately it's all about experimentation and execution. And that's exactly what science is.
Of course. And there's been this movement to try for us to assimilate art into the STEM acronym. So everybody says STEAM now, which I think is awesome. And
Oh,
there's this division among scientists, which I think is silly. But some scientists are like, keep it STEM, keep it totally objective. And you're like, but there are many more of us, like the other half of us are like, no, STEAM, like bring art into it. And one of my dear friends, his name's Andrew, he works at the Wisconsin Science Discovery Center, and they have an entire graduate program dedicated to how do you marry art and science together. And so their graduate projects are like these gigantic installations, like art installations and things like that, that have scientific underpinnings or some sort of basis in the sciences, but it's trying to blend those together, which I think is so cool and so important. So
Mm,
that
yeah.
is
and they are
super
very
cool.
similar thinking, hypothesis testing, like you're saying, it's the same sort of brain function, just applied in a different medium.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Janine has like a graph, and she has like a whole like pretty scientific
Nerdy.
graph, and yeah,
Yeah. Like it's a thing. It's a
she's
matrix.
got Venn diagrams, she's got graphs, she's got
Yes.
like a whole thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. I
all
love that.
associated to style.
Except for its personal style. So it's
Yeah.
a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, but I definitely think, and that's what I often look to other people. It's like, how are they thinking? Like, what is the structure of like how they put things together? And I see very similarities in both in a lot of different ways. And another thing too that I was going to say about like the whole like AI thing, this is like really interesting because it's like I don't know, I tinkered a little bit with it and I was like pretty like, whoa, this is kind of cool. But then I realized like, like how humans can take two different things, like, like this lip gloss and this coffee mug, and we can like connect them somehow, some way into something completely different, like a coffee mug that puts lip gloss on. I don't know. Just saying. But like we can put things together in just like things that don't belong together and we can connect the dots in like ways that I don't think that like AI can do. Like, I don't know, maybe it can one
Yeah.
day if we tell it to, but like we would probably have to tell it to
Yeah, not
stuff like
not
that.
yet. I mean, it's abstract thinking, I think is still difficult, which is, a lot of people are saying, oh, the sort of AI economic collapse for humans is coming because they will take over a lot of jobs. But in jobs that require creativity, AI still lags in that capacity, like you said. And it's the interesting thing about the way AI operates is that traditional computing, classical computing, you would try to have an outcome you would want to achieve or an answer that you would want to get. And you would start with a question. And then as a programmer, you would program all of the steps to go from question to answer to solve the problem. AI is fundamentally different in the way that there is no in between that's required for computing. It basically takes the hands off of the wheel for the developers. The developers create the AI and then they say, okay, I achieved that answer. And AI comes up with models on the spot over and over and over and over and over again instantaneously until it finds the most efficient answer, the most correct answer, what have you. And so it does its own thing. And the strange thing about something like a chat GPT, large language model, is that you don't know how it goes through those steps. It's concealed. The AI conceals its own notes. And so we don't really know the steps it's taking. And so for something like creating a synthesis of abstract ideas, right? Like lip gloss coffee cup. You would give that to an AI, you wouldn't necessarily program the AI to be creative. It's something that the AI would have to become creative on its own. And so the question
Mm.
is it possible? When will it happen that it achieves true creativity?
Yeah. Well, it's just like interesting because it brings out the question like, what is humanity? What makes us human? And
Hmm.
in a question that I don't think that any of us had really ever considered before. I mean, like we thought like what makes us human as compared to like monkeys or gorillas or, we thought that, but like what actually makes us
Yeah.
conscious beings? And
And
so,
we used to think it was intellectual capacity, right? Cognitive capacity. Like, oh, well, you don't see a chimpanzee writing Beethoven's Fifth, right? But
mhm.
now you have AI that can, I mean, literally smoke us in so many categories instantaneously. And AI is still in its infancy, right? And so this says nothing about AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, which is something that is essentially human-like. It is a human replacement, more or less, and it can critically think and it can conceptualize and it may have abstract thought. So you're right. It's like what makes us human? And I think a lot of it is that creative component, right? The
Mhm.
I am going to put these things together and I'm going to be messy. I don't have to be perfect. And maybe that's what humanity is an acceptance of imperfection and the beauty in the imperfection.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's really amazing. Well, okay, so this is a style podcast, and we I could talk about this stuff like I
We've gone off the
really
I know.
can
rails.
go into this, but
I should have warned
it's
you.
interesting because like one of my clients, she is an executive at a large tech company in the United States, and she works a lot with AI, and she has kind of leaned into style as a way to differentiate herself and brand herself as being more human, like more
Very cool.
creative, more human. And so, and like her style has really elaborated into this like very like a kind of avant-garde, like really artistic, really expressive. But she's working with AI. And I think that like using fashion as communication in that way, like I think is something that is quite possible, like how you used, your style to communicate like your individuality and your authenticity. Like it's something that people can actually look at as a way to differentiate themselves from the robots.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, the uniqueness, the flair, the color, the textures. Yeah, I mean it's the richness of being a consciousness that has the ability to see, taste, touch, feel actual tactile sensation, versus a consciousness that is just constructed in code and has none of that capacity. They can analyze metadata of what something looks like, but they can't see the richness of it, right? They don't have photoreceptors. So yeah, I think that is, I could see that being her staring down the barrel of something where she's like, oh my gosh, we're creating consciousness now. And what do I do? Okay, be colorful.
Yeah,
I
I
could see
feel
that.
like,
I
yeah, and
get
I
that.
mean, I feel like that's going to be sort of a reflex and a continued thing that humans might want to hang on to is like the imperfections, the flaws, like the proof of humanity, like I feel like technology that can detect whether something is AI or not is going to be like increasingly valuable because people are going to want to know.
oh
And
yeah.
I think, and I mean, I can't help but think that things that are made by humans are going to be considered more valuable, but I don't know if that's actually true.
I think
It'll be
people
vintage.
It'll be vintage. Yeah, it'll be like this is so quaint.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
I
how
made
cute.
it.
but no, I think that humans actually do respond to human, like for example, like I've done like tests of like, can I outsource to AI certain tasks and stuff like that, and then like I can see like something like like my newsletter. Basically, my newsletter is exactly what my video is, but in newsletter format. So it's like maybe I could just have AI just synthesize it, write it out, send it. And, the reaction that I get from when I actually sit down and have my messy grammatical error, because like I failed English twice in high school. Like I'm not a good, like I am not like the
Say it
opposite.
loud, say it proud.
So, but people still respond to that so much more genuinely with all like the flaws and all of like the maybe non sequiturs and like trains of thoughts that I might go off of, but people respond to that in a much more human way.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
But
all right, so I have to ask you about your makeup.
yeah. Yeah.
Total non sequitur. Um, but, do you have okay? What is your eyeliner, and do you have any other favorite? Do you have any favorite products or techniques that you use?
Favorite eyeliner by far is NYX Epic Ink
Oh,
eyeliner.
okay.
It's a brush eyeliner, and I struggled for so long with the pencil and the, what have you. This one stays all day, and it's just a really easy, smooth application. I'm a winged liner gal. I love it, and it's hard to get that definition with a pencil. So, Epic inked liner, NYX, and I use the brown one. So brown it up. Another product that I use, if you have, I mean, this is the first time in my life I'm saying this, but like more mature skin, because I'm going to be 40 this year.
Wow.
I love, oh gosh, Jones Road products.
Mm.
She's amazing. The stuff that she designs is beautiful. Her foundation, I mean, I was going like still thinking I was in my early 20s, just caking it on, just
Mhm.
really matte, really caked on. Like Maybelline caked on. And I found Jones Road. She has a foundation now, and it sits on the skin. It's dewy. It looks like you're wearing nothing at all. And I'm like, I live for that. And so as I've aged, I've sort of begun to kind of transition all of my favorite products. So Jones Road, if you're listening to this, Miss Jones Road,
Bobby
wonderful. I
Brown.
love
Bobby
it.
Brown.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Bobby Brown. Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
I have her Miracle Balm and I like it. It's like the best kind of blush because it makes it like a little bit glowy, but I haven't tried the What the Foundation.
I have three colors in the Miracle Balm, and if anybody out there is listening to this and you have tattoos, like that the thing about tattoos is when they're fresh, they look wonderful, but then you start to get that like deposition of skin cells over the top, and they look faded. I put that Miracle Balm over these tattoos. Oh, like you get that little glow,
Oh.
that little kiss right over the tattoos. It looks beautiful. So
Oh, that's
Oh,
good to
good to
know.
know. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have quite a few tattoo people in our audience, so they will like that.
yes,
Yeah. I'm a
love
late
it.
bloomer. I got my first tattoo at 50, but now I have
Yes.
three.
Great.
Yeah, listen, slow down, okay?
Yeah, I know.
We
I
got
know.
a
I'm a
Hell's
little
Angel in the
wild.
chat here. Slow down.
Yeah, I was a
Yeah.
piercing person. I just got my septum pierced at last year at 49, 48, 49. And
I
so
think it looks darling on you, by the way. I've been looking at it this whole time. Because I
I
have a
like it
nose
too.
ring, and I went through a recent breakup. And the first thing I thought after the hair dyeing, of course, I was like, should I get a septum piercing?
well, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, but just don't post videos on Facebook because people will be like really upset with you for having,
Oh
yeah,
gosh.
People will
yeah,
have thoughts.
they will have thoughts. Yeah.
The Facebook crowd.
I stopped posting on Facebook because of it, because I was just like, I couldn't say anything without like some boomer lady going like with, like, why are you having your nose? And I'm just like,
Nose. And you're like, if you're not cool, just say that. You know what I mean? Just
yeah.
say that you're not cool. It's
Just
fine.
yeah, just cool. Yeah, that's fine, and so but on Instagram and TikTok, I'm safe from that.
Yeah.
More accepted.
So
You're seen here.
yeah, we're seeing. Yeah. So I would really like to ask you, what advice would you give to somebody who says that, maybe like that they don't feel like they can be themselves, they can dress the way that they want to dress, like at work or to be themselves fully,
Hmm.
authentically. Like, what would you say to them?
This is the context. This is coming from a scientist. I would say that you are a statistical improbability in this universe. You are a coalescence of stardust that is somehow become conscious, sitting on top of a nickel and iron rock that is careening through a radiation soup of a void. Life is so random and weird and short, but so incredibly precious. And so, who cares what it is that you wear? The only person that you should be concerned with pleasing is yourself, because the years, the days, the hours that you have on this planet in existence are so short. So, live them to their most rich and their absolute fullest if you can.
Mm, I love
And
that.
I'm crying.
Yeah, it's so true.
That
Yeah,
really
This
got
is
me teary. That's
my first time getting a
amazing.
host to cry. Mark this in
yeah.
the
Oh my
calendar.
gosh,
With
yeah.
science, baby. We love
The-
it.
It's so
Amazing.
true though. It's like how like do you ever like just trip out? Like sometimes I trip out, like just thinking like I'm sitting in a car, like I'm sitting in a car in a country that's at peace. I have a fridge full of food. I just turn on the water. I'm human. Like how did I get to be born in this place, in this time, in this like just like this, the whole thing. It's just like I could have been born like an ant. Like I could have been born like, in like the Congo. Like I could have been, like any like number of places. And then I just feel like so like, oh,
Overwhelmed and blessed. Yeah.
yeah, like this is just crazy. And so like, why not just wear what you want, right?
Yeah, it
Wear what you
makes what,
want. Go.
yeah.
Yeah. Like, who are you trying to please? Like, this society wants to box you into this look, this, especially for women, this personality trope, but all of that is so irrelevant and obscure and nonsensical in the grand scheme of what you represent as a conscious entity. And so far, despite all of our technology and all of our searching, we are the only thing like us in our neighborhood of the universe. Why would you spend a moment of that worrying about what the fuck some random person you don't even know thinks about you? Who cares,
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find you?
Oh my gosh, I'm easy to find. You could just Google me, Leah Elson, but on Instagram I am gnarly by nature, and nature has a silent G on the front of it because I thought I was clever. I don't know. I didn't ever think this was gonna blow up, and then it did, and I'm like, well, it's too late to change my name now. So.
Oh, oh, cool. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming to visit us. And it was a pleasure to speak with you.
Oh,
Yeah.
pleasure being here. Thank you for having me on the show,
Thank
both
you.
of you.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course.